Welcome to the Future of Payroll and Workforce Management Insights by HR.com, your go-to resource for insights into payroll and workforce management. From navigating compliance and technology trends to exploring the latest in global payroll solutions, we're here to keep you ahead of the curve. Join us as we dive into the forces reshaping payroll and share practical strategies to optimize your workforce management. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Future of Payroll and Workforce Management here at HR.com, where I am Executive Community Leader of Future of Payroll, and I do several other things, but enough about me. Today is about my guest, Bob Ficken, who is AI Officer and CHRO at Ask HR Consultancy and a university faculty member. Welcome, Bob.
Nice to be here, Brent. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this episode of the podcast. We had a really interesting conversation recently around the evolving nature of leadership in the C-suite and how payroll might fit into that and a few other things as well. And I know you have a few ideas to share around that. But first, I'd like to ask all my guests, what what galvanizes you? What gets you up in the morning and rearing at it every day when it comes to the world of work and just, your profession in general?
Sure, it's the easy one for me, Brent, because I've spent my life trying to help people. I've been a faculty member to teach people and help them reach their goals. I've been in HR trying to help organizations and their people reach their goals. So for me, it's about giving back. And my 10-year-old grandson.
Oh, awesome. 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 Yeah, I have a daughters 5 and 6. And so I shudder to think of when my 6-year-old will be 10. I don't know what I'll do, but so maybe I'll get some pointers from you after, in the green room, possibly. So let me set the stage for us. Because we had a really excellent, really interesting conversation around all this stuff. And there's sort of a convergence of ideas here. So, one thing that I sort of posed to you when we first started talking was this idea, of the chief payroll officer that sort of entered the sort of the public chat, if you will, right? And some rationale for that, and there might be some rationale for other types of expansions of leadership roles in the C-suite. We want to talk about that a little bit today. We also want to talk about, what's the right way to compensate employees, like what's the right sort of philosophy there and this sort of thing. But you shared something with me, and I was trying to find it in my notes and I couldn't find it exactly, but you said something around empathy. And so let me pose a question to you. Why is empathy emerging as the top trait companies seek in their next CEO? You shared some stat with me around that. Maybe we could just kind of sit on that for a little bit.
Well, if you think about it, it's numbers like anything else. The leading edge of the Gen X generation is turning 60 this year, right? So as they start to move into retirement, and then the millennial generation begins to take over, you're seeing more and more, of empathy being crucial, because the number one concern of every employee, or the number one desire of every employee, is to feel valued and appreciated. And empathy is really the only thing that will do that, because empathy connects you personally to each employee, in some way, whether it's a shared sport, shared play, a shared family status, a shared whatever it might be, but some kind of connection that actually ends up binding that employee to the organization and to that leader in a way that keeps them when times are tough, and things like that. But it has to be true empathy. It can't be contrived. It can't be fake. It's got to be true empathy. Because if an employee doesn't feel valued, you're already losing them.
How does that play? How can a CEO and maybe others in the C-suite, how can they show that true empathy, and still be true to their business goals, if you will? And maybe that's the wrong binary, but maybe that's a great way to start the conversation there.
Well, one way would be to put the employee's needs first. I've had the benefit of working for some CEOs that believe the better you treat the employee, the better they'll treat your customers and so on. And one way to do that, for example, would be I have never made any of my reports, and I've had teams anywhere from 2 to 24. I never make any of them come and ask me for permission to take a time off. For me, it's very simple. They're adults, I'm adult. They know if their family situation, whatever it might be, caring for an aging parent, having a sick child, whatever it is, they know when that's more important than being at work, and I trust them, right? And
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
their situation, I trust them until that trust is broken for whatever reason, but and I start by trusting. And so if they need time off, they don't ask me for permission. They let me know when they're leaving and when they're gonna be back. And that's just one way because the old adage of having asking every employee to leave their life at the door is gone.
I'd love to tie this back to the idea of a chief payroll officer. And how would a chief payroll officer be empathetic or open the doorway to bringing empathy into the C-suite?
Sure, I think a chief, in that role, assuming all the C-level roles were focused on being truly empathetic and demonstrating that, a chief payroll officer would be doing things like in the stage of setting up payroll dates, making sure that none of them were going to be hamstrung by a holiday or a 3-day weekend or something like that, where it might prevent the payroll team members and other people in the organization from being able to enjoy that time off. So that would be how you would start by making sure there were no conflicts like that. And then allowing for any payroll error that gets made, regardless whose fault it is, gets rectified immediately. No more than over
Mm.
1 day, overnight. That shows empathy because people need their paycheck. So if something gets messed up, there's a deduction taken that shouldn't be, or they didn't get paid for their overtime or whatever, don't tell them to go fix the next check, fix it tomorrow.
And bringing that area, that domain of the empathy for that domain or that area of thinking when it comes to the workplace into the senior leadership domain.
I
I
guess,
think, you know what? Yeah.
yes. I mean, one problem is going to be the CFO, right? Almost all
Hmm.
organizations have a CFO. And again, I know we had a little brief discussion about where payroll should sit. Should it be finance or HR? Either way, if
Yeah.
you have a CHRO or you have a CFO, and then you're gonna have a payroll, chief payroll officer, how does that work with the CFO or the CHRO? And how do those roles combine? And how does that become separate enough to be viewed that way? So to speak. It would probably take a little bit of a change of culture.
Yeah, it probably would. Now you also brought up though when we spoke recently around a couple of other potential new roles for the C-suite that you think that there's a lot of rationale for right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of them is the chief ethics officer, and I think ethics are taking more of an important role as the older workforce tends to age out, and there's more of a focus on being a valued community partner, reducing your footprint, energy wise and things like that. Ethics have always been at play, but there's more focus on it now. So I
Mhm.
think there's potentially the role for a chief ethics officer within most companies, someone that could almost be an ombudsman that can step outside when they need to look at it and let the company know what they're doing right or wrong and provide guidance. The other one would be the chief AI officer. I mean, every conference you go to, you and I talked about that. One you went to recently, one I went to recently, where AI is the ever evolving topic that's taking up almost all the conversation. And you can have a whole day long discussion about where does AI sit? Should it sit with the CIO? Should it sit with the CHRO? I find that in most organizations, HR is leading the charge because most of the initial large language models or LLMs that were created to serve HR repetitive tasks like onboarding or job descriptions or policy development or whatever it might be, where we're using AI for those things, or most of us are. So, should that be a separate C-level role? Someone that can oversee and work with and collaborate with all the different departments, so to speak.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I interrupted you, but you made me think of something really, and I can't wait to share it right now because you made me think of something. There's a lot of maybe this is a way of making sensitive of it, right? There's a lot of areas where there's a need for high level leadership in the organization, but we seem to be at this. I'm using the royal we seem to be at this. Have arrived at this question as to whether all these things, whether they fall under the auspices of an already existing C-suite role, or if they really truly, and if they do, which one is it? Right? That's another question. It's a little bit of a conundrum. And then, of course, do they truly merit their own new C-suite role? I,
Right.
I guess this is an interesting question around, um, because the C-suite has been expanding for a while. This is not a new thing, right?
Right. No,
Yeah.
and I think, we've all seen these leadership changes from decade to decade, where we go from, 83% of all CEOs being CFOs, finance people, numbers people, and there wasn't any need for empathy in that role. And then it became more about world-class customer service, and then we started seeing CMOs moving to the CEO role and HR people moving. And then it changed again into trying to reduce footprint and energy, and then it became all about innovation, and now we're in this space where it's all about AI. So I think it's a natural thing that as leadership evolves, who needs to be at that sea level is going to evolve right on with it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This might be a good segue to another question that we had that you and I were exploring around. Obviously we have this. There's this assumption, and it's a fair assumption, and it more often than not it's true, is that the CHRO possesses, so more naturally expresses empathy than possibly a CFO, this sort of thing, right? So other C-suite members of the C-suite may not be as the suite of the C-suite might not be as empathetic as others. Others are newer members of it might be more inclined to that. Um, but there's something around systems thinking. And that seems to be elusive. To me, systems thinking is sort of the outside the realm of empathy necessarily. That's real sort of, I'm just looking at how things like workflow and this sort of thing, or what makes system thinking so elusive and at the same time essential for today's HR leaders?
Sure. Well, first of all, if for anyone that doesn't really know much about systems thinking, I recommend The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge. A
Hmm.
good way to kind of get initiated with systems thinking what involves. But I mean, you can take almost industry. Let's take like the grocery store industry. If a grocery store industry wants to increase its business, it can build more stores, right? It's one option. But if you add more stores and you don't add more customers and you don't add more suppliers, is it really going to affect your business?
Right.
Conversely, let's say you add more suppliers, but if you don't have more stores and you don't have more customers, does that fix your business? And we'll go through this and we can do this industry by industry. The realization you come to is if you really want to grow your business, you have to look at it as a system and fix everything at the same time. So you have to be able to combine adding the suppliers and adding the customers with the new store openings so that it all works seamlessly. Right? And again, we can do that across any industry. In HR, where you see it is in recruiting, right? Because it's not just about paying competitively. It's about the benefits you provide. It's about the culture you provide. It's about, the growth opportunities you provide. It's about all those different things. And unless you look at it as a system, you're just throwing darts at it and you're not going to have any impact.
It's interesting you mentioned the grocery store example, right? And my mind immediately went to supply chains, right? And okay, you could have maybe you have a static number for the time being. You have a static number of stores, right? And you increase your suppliers. Well, okay, now you're decreasing the chance that you're going to run out of product, right?
Right.
But you might run into a situation that's not so desirable because of that. Maybe you're not able to purchase the product soon enough, or whatever. And that's where I reach sort of the edge of my understanding of purchasing, right, when it comes to running a business. But
I mean, wouldn't
yeah,
wouldn't it be better to know that in advance though, so you don't go opening the new stores and all that? Right.
Exactly, exactly right, and of course you think about economics as in the theory of supply and demand, right? Are you gonna just are you going to create more demand by offering more supply? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Maybe sometimes. Um, how do you think how does systems thinking do you think payroll people are good at systems thinking within the context of payroll? And would that come into play in terms of a leadership role in the C-suite for payroll?
Yeah. I think they do in some ways. And again, it gets back to who's handling payroll. But for example, a systems thinking approach would be, okay, what are you paying people to do? If you're paying them to sell, you're probably using commission compensation. If you want to pay them to provide a high level of customer service, then are you paying them based on service level targets? The key thing here is if you're just handing out paychecks and it's not linked to what you really need your people to do, you're missing the boat. Because money itself is not a motivator or demotivator. According to Herzberg, one of the theorists that we work with or we know about, money is either a satisfier or just satisfier. And if people don't feel like they have some control over their pay and they don't know what their pay is linked to, you miss the whole boat.
Yeah. And a lot of payroll folks, like the sort of the administrators, the people in there that are processing pay every pay period, they're very fixated on just making sure the number of just making sure everyone gets paid, right? And they're not thinking about pay from that broader perspective that you just shared. Now, maybe line managers are, maybe people in organizational leadership are thinking about that way, but at the same time, there might be very little communication between the payroll processing, the people who do the payroll processing, and the folks that are sort of thinking about, okay, what is our pay philosophy here, compensation philosophy here at the organization, and so to me, it seems like it would be beneficial for if there were a chief payroll officer, for instance, going back to that possibility, for that person to have a good grasp of those two things, because one is very much the domain of the CFO's concern, right? And the other is maybe the of interest to the chief people officer and the chief human resource officer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, there's two opportunities that are really strategic to every organization. One is linking performance to pay, right? Somehow, and the other one, the other one is internal promotions. Because what
Right.
will happen is a company will adopt a great message or mission or whatever, world class customer service. And Manager Jones buys in on this new objective and aligns everything with the new service goal and hits them, exceeds them. Off, and then Manager Williams says, "Ah, no, that's just policy du jour. It'll pass as quickly as it came into being. I'm gonna focus on sales," and so he delivers exceptional sales. So promotion opportunity comes up. Which one does the organization promote? Well, I'll tell you that most of them are going to promote Williams, the sales guy, because he delivered the most money to the bottom line. And the minute they do that, they've just confused their entire workforce.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
how serious are we about world class customer service if we promote someone that was good at sales?
Yeah, and you know what? You kind of, you're creating cognitive dissonance with your employer culture. This is absolute fundamental. There's systems thinking that needs to be taken into account when forming when you go about building an employer culture.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I think that's important, and you have to be really clear about what you want. What's your goal as a company? Are you trying to build a better world? Are you trying to are you trying to lower your foot? What's the goal? And then everything should flow from that theoretically, right? The problem is that between their mission statement and their values, their culture, and their pay, companies mess it up. They don't carry
Yeah,
that through everything. If
yeah.
I want world-class customer service, for example, that means it becomes part of the review process. It becomes part of the hiring process. We do a better job of screening for apathy and things that are attached to that. It changes how we pay, it changes our benefits, it changes our training, it changes everything. And I'm going to be putting customer service on their paychecks. I'm going to put customer service on their business cards. The back of the cards almost always unused, right? So I'm going to put our
Right.
mission statement on the back of the card, so they can't forget, they don't forget. I want the newest employee to be able to rattle it off, right? Or what is it? Why have it?
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about that, setting the goals and everything should cascade down from the goals in terms of the culture. And then obviously thinking about the systems thinking around that, how to actually bring it about. And of course that those goals, they start with leaders.
Yeah.
I've heard this term, I've heard this before, that leaders, culture leaders set the culture, they they set the example for the culture. And part of that is, execution on much needed, uh, you know, um, activities, right? To actually actually set it into motion, right? There's an organic aspect to culture, but there's also an inorganic aspect to it, which is, that leader actually setting the ball in motion. And if you don't have enough, um, you want to have a very broad representative uh, representation of the employer culture in the C-suite in terms of what's going on in the company from a systems thinking standpoint. I'm rambling. I think we have another podcast episode to to schedule here, right?
Well, I mean,
System thinking and employer culture. Go ahead.
it's critical, right, for leadership to be thinking that way. But the crux of it all is you're an individual manager out there, whatever department you're in charge of. How do you embed the culture into your team or not? And do you have the tools to do it? Do you have the training to do it? You know, I'd venture to say right now that most managers haven't even been taught how to deal with multiple generations on their work team.
Yeah.
And how do you justify that? You got 3 and 4 generations in one work team, and no one's giving the managers any training or tools on how to do that, you know? So what do they do when push comes to shove, and do they reward service or do they reward sales? I mean,
Yeah, you want to reward both. Yeah.
well,
And you want
that's why it becomes really important about what your goal is, right? If you're consistent about your goal and everything comes from that, then the decision making gets easy, right? It either supports that goal or it doesn't. If it doesn't, you don't do it.
So well put. So well put. We could go another hour here. I'm certain of it. But we have reached the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, Bob, for joining me for this episode. These are really, really thought-provoking topics. I'm so glad that you shared your ideas.
My pleasure, Brent. Happy to help anytime.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Workforce Management and Payroll Insights by HR.com. We hope today's episode brought you valuable insights and fresh perspectives on the future of payroll and workforce management. Be sure to check out more episodes and explore resources at HR.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep innovating and making a difference in the world of payroll and workforce management.